Sydney Sweeney gained 35 pounds of pure rock-hard muscle for her new movie role. Is it fact or is it cap? Look, I'm going to be honest, it's 100% cap. You usually hear these stories from number one athletes in the offseason gaining a lot of muscle and or losing a lot of fat. And also movie stars. You always see these male movie stars. This guy gained 54 pounds of muscle in a year and lost 108 pounds of body fat. Pure transformation. It's like, what? That's not even possible. Number one. First thing I want to point out, and I'm not saying this for Sydney Sweeney because I don't think she took steroids, but most of these male movie stars and most of these professional athletes, they take steroids. So that's the first thing. Whenever you get inspired by these transformations, they're lying to you. Number one, they're probably on steroids. Number two, they're probably also photoshopped, heavily doctored. The numbers are fudged a lot. Measurements are, a lot of stuff is probably fake. And it's just like, look, it's just not possible to gain that much muscle. I don't know. These people, usually what they think, excuse me, what they think is any weight gained, if you didn't get fat, is muscle. That's usually what people view it as, is Sydney Sweeney. I don't even really think she gained 35 pounds of muscle, if I'm being honest, but she went from skinny to, I don't want to say she's jacked, but she went from skinny to more muscular, probably also added on some fat. But what these people view it as is if you don't go to obesity, that every pound you gained was muscle. What? It's not even close to how that works. You always see these athletes. This athlete, he gained 22 pounds of muscle. It's like, okay, he gained 22 pounds, 12 muscle, maybe. That's pushing it. A lot of glycogen, a lot of fat. Nobody's gaining that much, especially a trained athlete. Maybe there's a guy, 7'2", anorexic. He takes steroids. He eats a lot of protein. He lifts very intensely. Maybe you could gain 5 pounds of muscle, back to back months, 15 pounds in 3 months, maybe, with how big of a frame that is. But the average person, you're not going to be gaining more than 1 pound of muscle in a month. It's just not feasible. It's not possible. And if you're gaining, a lot of people will look at the scale and they'll say, I gained 4 pounds this month. It's like, okay, look, barring something, maybe you come off an ACL surgery into your first month back and you're training legs and you get some of that muscle memory back. But barring something insane like that, something that's just not normal, if you're gaining more than 2 pounds a month, the majority of it is fat and or glycogen. And glycogen is not bad. People talk about water weight as being bad. Glycogen is just carbs that are held, more specifically water that's being held in your muscle. So that's not necessarily bad, but that's not really muscle because it's going to fluctuate depending on how much carbs you've had in your system. And yeah, look, if you're gaining 2 pounds, you might be gaining 1 pound of skeletal tissue, 0.5 pounds of glycogen, and 0.5 pounds of fat. And that's a fine bulk. That's a fine way to gain muscle. If you gain 10 pounds in a month, I mean, the most muscle you could have gained is probably 2 pounds. And maybe we'll give you 3 pounds of glycogen, but half of that is body fat. So you need to fully understand when people talk about these insane weight gains, where they view it as all muscle. Look, just because you gain weight and you didn't go to obesity, just because you didn't immediately die, doesn't mean the majority of it wasn't fat. If somebody's extremely lean, if a professional boxer, a lot of those guys come in very dialed. If a professional boxer goes from, 135 pounds, and then after their fight ends up at 190 pounds a couple months later, they didn't gain all of that in muscle. The majority of it was they gained a lot of glycogen, water in their muscle, because they have to fight at a low body weight to keep the size advantage, and then a lot of body fat. It's just not possible. So I keep that in mind whenever you're trying to gain weight. Is just because you didn't get fat, a lot of these boxers don't get fat, doesn't mean all that weight was muscle. Some of it was probably muscle, but most of it was